based on the meetup itself. But Mark is right now the founder and CEO of Funnel Fire. He's previously been with Panjiva, Gast. He's closed enterprise deals of his career. He is also on I think you run the alumni board for Stevens, right? Stevens Institute of Technology. So Mark's definitely very much a figure in the organization, and he's from everything that I've heard, he's probably one of the best salespeople, at least on the enterprise side, that we have on this coast. The
Bold statement.
yeah, started with single platform, I guess, a couple years ago. He put together the entire enterprise sales program for single platform, and obviously they were very successful. As someone mentioned, they were the best exit for DFJ last year. But I know from Lee's perspective, when he first came on, which he mentioned earlier, they were not necessarily focused on the enterprise, but you had to make that introduction. So if I've missed anything, Mark, Lee, if you want to add to that, feel free to. Okay. And all right, so first question, really. There's a lot of investors today that talk about this whole idea of 10x or 100x developers, whereby a great developer with a set of APIs, all the way from creating the team to getting your product built out to growing on top of your social graph, all the way through to monetizing through marketplaces ranging from Kickstarter, we can do pre-sales, through to iTunes or Google Play, or for that matter, funding through AngelList or Gust. I think that in some sense, a really good product team is all you really need to get a successful venture off the ground. I know this may be more applicable perhaps to the consumer space, and there's probably limited truth here as far as the enterprise is concerned, but what's your view on this whole idea that all you really need to get a company off the ground and potentially to a point where it's fundable, it's maybe even take it public with just a couple of purely product.
So I said, leave it to an investor to make you more dependent on them, right? I look at the whole like, oh, you don't need salespeople. The commercialization of the internet, of the enterprise is made. It's sort of like it's the diet pill for startups. If you look at any of the advertising for diet pills, it's sort of like, take our diet pill. Oh, and by the way, eat less and exercise, and you'll lose weight. So yeah, you have a great product team. All that's required, but if you're not selling anything, to me, it's the rare product. It's the rare product that just magically sells itself into the enterprise. People, and to that, even to that point, even when it's viral. I mean, I've had products that people have found over the internet, and they use it, and but then calling and talking to them and saying, hey, look, I can offer you this deal. Did you realize that the product does these 16 things, and you can go these use cases and all of that, and they don't even realize it, and they're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe I will move on this. So I think it's totally false to think that you can just get away, or it's a really great dream to think you can get away without doing any sales.
Also, I mean, how are you gonna? Why build a product that's not gonna sell? And I feel like you pitch the idea. It's so important to do a preset where you're promising the future, what's going to happen in the future, and get them on board at a certain point. Whether give them a trial or give them something for a weight discount, and you don't cash the check until the product is built. But like Mark said, you have all of these features, and you spent all this development money and development hours on building all these features that nobody ever uses. And I guess a good way to cut costs and a good way to make sure you're building the right product is to go out and sell it first.
And you're talking with single platform and the company I'm building now. We spent probably many months before we built the product just talking to customers. If I built this, would you pay for it? And before a single line of code was written, there was all of these questions of what is it that this market really needs? Because I think I know what they need. But I can tell you from what the product I was going to build in the beginning, I was probably 30% right, but I was about 70% wrong. And now the product that we're building now, companies are adapting. And I don't know if you guys have a similar story, I don't know, but I know that they spent a heck of a lot of time figuring out what was right. And hey, they were the best exit, so I mean, I think it says to what you should be doing.
So you guys started building the product or started selling first, do you remember with the single platform?
Yeah, I mean the classic story is, Wiley going into restaurants with a PowerPoint deck and saying like, we can do this, and then they're like, we don't want that, and then going back to the coffee shop, changing a couple things in the PowerPoint slide, like, what about this? And not necessarily building anything or even raising money until he knew exactly what people wanted.
I like the Yellow Pages story. So Wiley and Kenny, two of our founders, they were at Single Platform was originally a platform for sports bars to post their games and post their hours. And then they went to a publisher conference, and the CEO of Yellow Pages got up and said the number one thing that people are looking for when they're searching for a restaurant or a local business is their menus and products and services. And so literally right after that presentation, they went up and said, we're going to provide you 500,000 menus within the next few months. Will you partner with us? That's how it started. So the product wasn't even built yet, but they guaranteed that was going to happen, and then we could start selling the product.
Fair enough. I mean, does anyone have a different opinion in the audience? I'm curious to get it.
I just have a question because I've been working on a new business, new product. I spent 3 months talking to customer base, and almost universally they like the concept. Great idea. My question though is, when they say they love it, versus will they actually cut a check when I come back to them, say, all right, here it is. What's the uptake rate that you found when you were doing that with your exploratory phase versus actually then having a product in front of them?
Well, I asked them for a check. So I actually had revenue, and I think you guys did too, before I actually built the product. So I don't know the answer of basically saying, great, I'll come back to you and have a product. I'm like, great. Can I take a check from you right now, and then I'll deliver it to you? So the way I did it was I said, look, I want you to pay for a year up front, right now, if you think this is what you want, and I'll give you access to the product all throughout the beta phase. The day it launches, that's when your year starts. And they said, great. And so I took some checks in, and that's how I kind of started. So, and you probably have similar stories. Yeah. So I think that's the way to do it, right? So it's just because if they're like, well, I don't know, let me see it, and you got to ask yourself whether they really want it or they're just blowing smoke up your ass. So.
Fair enough. Next question is somewhat related, but I guess I think you answered it to some degree in terms of when you start thinking of sales. Sounds like you start thinking of sales even before you build the product. But somewhat related is the idea that there are different companies that approach sales differently. For example, with Salesforce, the founding team, in terms of Mark Benioff, he himself was a pretty good salesperson himself. So it was someone in the founding team that had the sales DNA. But you look at a company like GitHub, they pretty much grew bootstrapped, largely through an engineering team, all the way up to very recently where they took in a round of funding and are using that to build an enterprise-focused, probably on-premise product and expanding and building a sales team out of it. So I understand the idea of talking to customers and basically even pre-selling your product before the product is made. But in terms of team, engineering has become increasingly important, and a lot of founders today are engineers. Are you, in your ideal sort of founding team, would you have an engineer sales person combo? Because a lot of times it's not necessarily the same person that can do both. And we've seen different companies approach it differently. With the consumerization of the enterprise a bit, there is the take that you can build a product with purely engineers and not really worry about sales in terms of getting professional salespeople on the team much later. What's your view on that in terms of when do you start thinking of people with a sales DNA? At what point should they be brought on board team if it's not necessarily